You have been alive for every single day of your life. You were there for all of it. The first time you heard a voice, the first time you felt warmth, the first time something frightened you. You experienced years of things, and you remember almost none of it. Not because something went wrong, not because those years were uneventful. Your brain was actually learning faster during your first 2 years than it ever will again. More connections forming per second than at any other point in your life. You were paying attention. You were feeling things. You just can't access any of it now. And for a long time, nobody knew why. The phenomenon has a name. Sigmund Freud coined it over 100 years ago: infantile amnesia. He noticed that almost no adult could produce a clear memory from before the age of 3, and very few could produce reliable ones before the age of 7. At first, Freud assumed it was psychological, that children repressed their early experiences because those experiences were too overwhelming, too raw. That theory didn't hold up, but the observation was correct. Researchers studying human memory across different cultures, different languages, different continents have consistently found the same cutoff. Somewhere between ages 2 and 3, there's a wall. Before it, almost nothing. After it, the first fragments of who you remember becoming. For decades, the leading explanation was simple. Babies can't form memories because their brains aren't developed enough. The hippocampus, the region most responsible for storing long-term autobiographical memories, doesn't reach functional maturity until somewhere between 20 and 24 months. So the thinking was, no mature hippocampus, no storage. The events happened, but were never saved. Like trying to write on paper that doesn't exist yet. Need explanation, except it doesn't fully hold either, because researchers kept finding evidence that infants could remember things. A baby who had a painful experience in a hospital would cry when returned to that hospital months later, even without any visible cue that triggered the memory. Emotional responses, fear, comfort, preference, were clearly being stored somewhere. The memories weren't simply absent, they were somewhere, just unreachable. The real answer started emerging in the 2000s, and it came from an unexpected direction: mice. Neuroscientists Paul Franklin and Sheena Joslin at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto were studying a process called neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons. The hippocampus is one of the few regions of the brain that continues producing new neurons throughout life, but the rate is dramatically higher in infancy than at any other point. In infant mice, new neurons were flooding the hippocampus at a pace that, in adults, would be almost unimaginable. And here's what Franklin and Joslin discovered. When they suppressed neurogenesis in infant mice, essentially slowing down the production of new neurons, the young mice suddenly remembered things they'd previously forgotten. Their memories held. Conversely, when the researchers artificially increased neurogenesis in adult mice, those adults began forgetting things they'd clearly learned. The new neurons were overriding the old memories, not erasing them exactly, more like drowning them out. Each new neuron that integrated into the hippocampus disrupted existing circuits, destabilizing the pathways that older memories were stored in. Which means the reason you can't remember being 2 years old isn't that your brain was too primitive to record anything. It's that your brain was building itself so fast that the records kept getting overwritten. Every new neuron that flooded in to wire you for language, for walking, for object permanence, for recognizing faces, each one was jostling the memories that came before it. Your brain was prioritizing the future over the past. It was choosing what kind of person to become over what kind of infant it had been. And here's the part that's genuinely strange. The memories may not be fully gone. When Franklin and Joslin used drugs to suppress neurogenesis and then tested whether adult mice could recover old infant memories with the right triggers, some of those memories came back. The hippocampus hadn't deleted the files. It had just buried them so deep under new circuitry that normal retrieval couldn't reach them. There's a version of you, somewhere in your brain, that remembers everything. You just don't have access to it anymore. But there's another piece that nobody talks about. Even the memories you do have from early childhood, the ones from ages 4, 5, 6, researchers have found those are often not what you think they are. A 1995 study by psychologist Mark Howe showed that early childhood memories are highly susceptible to suggestion and reconstruction. When adults were asked about specific childhood events and given slightly incorrect details about those events, many incorporated the false details into their memories, genuinely believing them. What most people think of as their earliest memory is frequently a combination of actual fragments, stories told to them by parents, and photographs they've seen so many times that the image has replaced the experience. You're not remembering the birthday party, you're remembering the photo of the birthday party. The event itself may be almost entirely gone. So, why can't you remember being a baby? Because your brain was growing too fast to let you. Because every new neuron born in the rush of early development pushed aside the memories that came before it. Because the infrastructure needed to file away a coherent life story wasn't finished being built yet. And because even the memories that did survive were immediately vulnerable to being quietly replaced by stories, photographs, and other people's versions of what happened. The self you think of as you, the continuous thread of experience that starts somewhere in childhood and leads to right now, has a gap at the beginning. A gap that every human being alive shares. You were there. You felt things. You learned things that shaped everything that came after. And then the brain that was building itself so furiously simply moved on and took most of the evidence with it. Somewhere underneath everything you know about yourself, the first version of you is still in there. You just can't find it anymore.